Here's one from Thomas. That's his YouTube name. If it's about the future, he's talking about Ezekiel 39:9. If this verse is about the future, why the wooden weapons? And what's interesting is, and you're going to answer it, but if you look at the end of that verse, I'm going to submit to you that they're not wooden weapons. But what do you say, Steve?
The end of the verse, 39:9. It says, "Then those who dwell in the cities of Israel will go out and set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and bucklers, the bows and arrows, the javelins and spears, and they will make fires with them for 7 years." That's the verse, right?
Yeah. So he goes, if it's about the future, why the wooden weapons? And I think the answer to that is that these things are burning for 7 years. So that's a technology statement, and he's using those things to probably talk about future weapons to describe them.
Oh yeah, that's an option there. One of the things, what's his name again?
Thomas. It's his YouTube name. So
Thomas. One of the things that you have with Hebrew is it's a pretty vague language, and so for example, in this passage, the word for horses is a word that in Hebrew Hebrew doesn't have a specific word for horse. The word for horses in Hebrew is translated leapers, and it's used in the Bible for both horses and for birds, specifically swallows. And so when you're looking at the word for bow, for example, it's not like our word for bow. It's a word that means launcher. When you look at the word for arrows, it's a Hebrew word that means piercer, and it has the idea of a thunderbolt. When you look at the word for sword in the passage, it's a weapon for laying waste, is literally what the Hebrew says. And so when you're looking at the book of Ezekiel, specifically the Bible, the Old Testament, when it was first translated into English, that's way back in the 1500s, and then finally King Jimmy is in the 1600s. So when it's translated into English in the 1600s, and you have a word that means launcher, and they're going to translate it into English. Well, in the 1600s, a launcher was a bow. Could have been a catapult, but launcher was a bow. And a piercer or a thunderbolt would be an arrow because it's tied in with the launcher in that passage. So it's bow and arrow. And again, a weapon for laying waste in the 1600s was a sword. But when you get to the 20th century or even the 21st century, a launcher is not a bow anymore, not in a military context. And a leaper is not a horse anymore, not in a military context. And it could be, it can be that, but it's not confined to that. Another thing that, let me just deal with the whole issue of the wood thing, and basically what it's saying in verse 9 is that the Israelis are using these weapons for fuel for the next 7 years. One of the things that's interesting that's happening right as we speak, it's something that's been going around since some articles that I had in 2012, because I have the same questions that you have. They're starting to talk about using cellulose nanoparticles for armor. In fact, I just read an article today about police departments replacing Kevlar with this CNC is what they call it, and it comes from wood. And so what they do is they basically break down wood to a certain molecular structure, and it's lighter than Kevlar, it's stronger than Kevlar, and they're thinking about replacing the plates that they have in bulletproof vests with this stuff.
Really?
Yeah. They're also talking about using it.
So I'm assuming it like molds and it's pliable.
Yeah. They can shape it, they can mold it.
Wow.
Yeah. They're talking about using it for tanks. They're talking about using it for weapons. The stocks on military weapons and the scopes and that kind of stuff. Again, using it for tanks, for armor, for helmets. They're talking about using this stuff because obviously if it's stronger than Kevlar, It's going to be better than the helmets that we pass out to our soldiers. And so this is cutting edge technology, and it would literally be wood.
So like you already pointed out, this could be descriptions in the Hebrew of future weapons. That's why burns for 7 years. I don't think that's like a tree,
Yeah.
But could you, let's say, not doing the 7-year thing and whatever, could it be like we have the tribulation, nukes are launched, and it takes us back into the Stone Ages because everything's wiped out, and we go back to those weapons instead of having modern stuff?
But this is the battle that puts you back there.
Right. So it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, and so
the future,
this is World War III that's being spoken about here. Yeah.
Okay.
And so Israelis are pretty innovative. And they're pretty inventive on what they can do with things, and so you may be talking about nuclear weapons too.
Yeah.
With this whole thing, because it looks like the battle's nuclear when you get to the end of it.
So is that the verse that I'm thinking of where it fuels them for a number of years, or is there another one that talks about?
No, that's the one. So it fuels them for 7 years.
Yeah. Is the verse that talks about them burying the bodies downwind tied to this passage?
Yeah. It's,
so that's another one that it's like, it seems to be nuclear.
Yeah, just after that.
Coming from Hanford.
Yeah. Just after that, in verse 11 on down through verse 16, it talks about them going around and taking the bodies that are left after the battle and burying them in a place that's downwind from Israel.
Yeah.
That they have specific men that are picked out to go, and if a bone's found, it's marked. It's not touched, it's marked. And then specific men come in who are trained to do this, and they take the bones and they bury them downwind.
And why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Why not bury them right where they're at?
Interesting verse. All right, Thomas, YouTuber, thanks for reaching out, man. Appreciate the question.